Okay, so I'm going to try and describe the different spinal cord tracts, and then hopefully once you understand those, you'll be able to understand how the lesions in the spinal cord affect sensory and motor function, and then hopefully be able to get the weird pictures of guys with different colored pants that seem to be popular for testing you on your spinal cord knowledge. So we're going to start by talking about the lateral motor system, which is the lateral corticospinal tract and the rubrospinal tract. So from now on, rather than thinking of these as these two different tracts, you're going to think of this motor system as the 73 freeway south to San Diego. And it's really important that you remember that it's south to San Diego because south is kind of downward, and this is a efferent tract. So the way that this tract moves is, if you're looking at this diagram, this is brainstem up here. Above the line, below the line is cord. And it's going to start on one side here, up in the brainstem, and then it's going to travel down, and when it gets to this area where brainstem turns into cord, it's going to decusate, which just means cross over from one side of the body to the other. And then it's going to continue down the cord, and when the fibers get to the appropriate level, they're going to exit the cord. You'll notice that they are exiting the cord on the opposite side versus the side that the signal started from. So what that means is that the motor function on the right side of your body is controlled by the left side of your brain and vice versa. So how this metaphor is going to work is we're saying this is the 73 south to San Diego. San Diego, that's a pretty sporty place, right? So you're going to be driving down to San Diego where you're going to maybe go surfing, maybe play some beach volleyball, do something active outside. And so remembering that it's a sporty place is what's going to help you remember that the lateral corticospinal tract and rubrospinal tract carry motor function because you're going south to San Diego to do your sports. How you're going to remember the names better is you're going to think about lateral corticospinal tract. Lateral, you're close to the ocean on the side of California the whole time. And so that's how you're going to remember lateral. And then rubrospinal tract, you're going to change to thinking about the rubber spinal tract because when you get to San Diego, you're going to put on a rubber wetsuit to go surfing. You're going to play with your rubber volleyball. So you're going to think of it as the rubber spinal tract. All right, I think that is it for this tract. And the next one we're going to talk about is the dorsal columns medial lemniscus. So this tract, you're going to from now on think about as being the 405 freeway north to Los Angeles. It's really important that you remember it's going north from Irvine to Los Angeles because this tract contains afferent fibers, which means that it's carrying sensory information from your extremities up into your brain. So the way that these fibers work is you're going to have an input come into the cord from down here on one side. It's going to travel up the cord on that same side. When it goes into the brainstem, then it's going to cross over, and then the signal is going to be received by the brain on the opposite side. So you can see here that the opposite side, body and brainstem, right? So how are we going to remember what this carries? Because there's different types of sensory fibers. So this particular tract carries proprioception, it carries fine touch, and vibration. And you have to remember these. So how you're going to think about it is we're going to LA, right? And the people in LA are all hipsters. And hipsters are very much into sensitive, delicate things. And That's how you're going to remember the fine touch and vibration, and they also are very aware of what people think of them and how people perceive them. And so that's how you're going to remember proprioception. So you're going to remember the dorsal columns, medial lemniscus is the 405 north to Los Angeles, where all of the hipsters are obsessed with their fine touch, vibration, and proprioception. You're going to remember the name dorsal columns because LA is on top of Irvine if you're looking at a map. So it makes sense that the tract going to LA is dorsal because dorsal means on top. All right. So that's it for this one, our last tract. And I know there's a lot of other ones in your lecture, but these are really the three that matter and the three that you're going to get tested on the most, is going to be your anterolateral system. And the tract in your anterolateral system is the spinothalamic tract. And you're not going to think about it as a spinothalamic tract anymore. You're going to think of this as your 5 North Freeway to anywhere up north, Bakersfield, Fresno, Central Valley, wherever you're going to go, but the 5 North, because this is another afferent fiber carrying sensory information. But this one has a little bit of a different path than these other two. So when you have sensory information coming into your spinothalamic tract, it's going to start down here and enter. And then immediately after entering, it's going to switch sides. It's going to decussate in the cord. The other two both decussated in the brainstem, but this one decussates in the cord. So that's very different and very important. And then the signal is going to travel up. It's not going to switch when it gets to the brainstem. It's going to stay exactly on the same side that it traveled on, but it enters on the opposite side. All right. So make sure that you note that the decussation point of this anterolateral system is different. The next thing that we care about is what kind of sensory fibers is this tract carrying. So we said that the dorsal columns had proprioception, fine touch, and vibration. This spinothalamic tract carries pain and temperature. And the way we're going to remember that is first the name, spinothalamic tract. Spine sounds kind of spiny, sounds kind of painful. And then you're going to remember the temperature part because Bakersfield, Fresno, and the Central Valley, those are all horribly hot places. You do not want to be there in the middle of summer. They're really hot. So you're going to remember that your spinothalamic tract carries pain because of the spines and then carries temperature because it's going to all of these really hot places. Okay. So that is it for these 3 tracts, and then now we're going to try and figure out in an example what's going on. So here we're going to talk about a patient who has a hemichord lesion, also known as the Brown-Séquard syndrome. So a hemichord lesion is where at one level of your spinal cord, half of the cord has been knocked out. So if we were to look at it in cross section, it would look like this. It's going to be, here's your cord in cross section, and half of your cord has been totally messed up. Let's say this is, I don't know, at T12. So at that level, no sensory or motor input can pass through this blockage. And we need to figure out what type of function is this patient going to have at the level below the lesion. Above the lesion, everything's going to be totally fine. But below the lesion, stuff is not going to work as well, and we need to know how. So first, let's see how their motor function is going to work. So let's start by having the same pattern that we have up here. We're going to have our motor function start up here in the brainstem. We're going to cross over when we get into the cord and travel down. We can travel down just fine because this side of the cord is just fine, and get out. So this one works okay. You're going to have motor function on the contralateral side. And then we're going to see about motor function on the ipsilateral side. We're going to start up here, come down, decussate. Oh, nope. No motor function on the ipsilateral side. So no motor ipsy is what we're going to say. Then next we're going to check out sensation. So starting with the dorsal columns, medial lemniscus, we're going to see how our proprioception, fine touch, and vibration work. So with these, they're afferent signals, so they're going to start down here. So let's try on the ipsilateral side. We're going to have sensation come in. It's going to travel up. Nope. It's going to run into it. So no proprioception, fine touch, or vibration, ipsy. Let's try the other side. We're going to go in. We're going to travel up, no problem. We're going to decusate and go. So yes, prop, fine touch, and vibration, contra. All right, last one. We have to see how pain and temperature work. So remember, this is the weird one. It's going to be a little different. We are going to enter on the contralateral side, but remember, this one decusates immediately after entering. So we're going to cross over and we're going to try and go up, and nope, it is not going to work. So we're going to have no pain and temp contra. And then if we try it on the ipsilateral side to the lesion, we're going to enter, we're going to decusate, no problem. We're going to travel up, no problem. And we're going to have totally fine pain and temperature on the ipsilateral side to the lesion. So we're going to say yes, pain / temp, ipsy. The one exception to that is at the exact level of the lesion. At the exact level of the lesion, no signal is going to be able to enter and decusate because it can't even get in there. So there's going to be just this one spot that we're going to say is our exception, where you can't get pain and temperature on the ipsilateral side, but really that detail doesn't necessarily even matter that much. What you want to remember is that the anterolateral system is going to be different than the lateral motor system and dorsal columns medial lemniscus in this hemichord lesion. So hopefully after going through these three, which are the most important tracts, and going through this example, you can see that by understanding the way the tracts work, you can kind of work your way through these different examples and figure out what kind of function a patient's going to have below the level of their spinal cord lesion. Okay.